Hi everyone. Welcome to the teachings of the Ascended Masters on fallen angels, Nephilim, and UFOs. Episode 6. I'm Joseph Macchio.
And I'm Stephen Macchio. And I believe that in the last show we left off with talking about the story of Lucifer and how he was taught by his hierarchs, the Elohim and the Lords of Form, the secrets of creation.
Yes.
In the creation of form, right? In
Yes.
creating the physical bodies.
Creating the bodies. It was an exact science. We had etheric bodies, we had physical bodies, and we're not going to get into that right now, but there are 4 lower bodies like we mentioned.
Right.
But yes, they had the great and magnificent science of the creation of form, and they're called the builders of form.
Right. Except to say that the physical form is based on the golden ratio spiral.
Yes, and that's an
the
important...
science is
Yeah.
absolute perfection.
Yes.
I mean, the whole idea of the way a person looks.
Yes.
You know, so you can easily tell when we were talking before about the Greys, they didn't have the
Yes,
science
right.
down very well.
No.
Arms a little bit too long, the eyes are ridiculous.
Grotesque.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, this is not, the science of perfection
Right.
that you would get from the archangelic hosts
Yeah.
and the lords of form.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So let's continue now with our story regarding this rebellion.
Well, we know that after Lucifer rebelled and was cast out, he then proceeded, believe it or not, to create his own race in, you might say, very large test tubes and by other means by the millions. Now, this was to compete with the great sons and daughters of God all over the universe and on earth. And therefore, if he had his own race, he could control them and do his work through them. Now, his lieutenant Satan also did the same thing and produced a race that we call the Satans. And you find the word Satans in various apocalyptic books like the Book of Jubilees and so forth. Now, these races, okay, they have no soul, they have no divine spark, as we mentioned, the threefold flame, they have no I am presence or divine self.
Right. So even though we were talking before about they understood and knew the secrets of creation, in this instance, because they were cut off and cast down to the earth, they no longer had the ability to just grab a soul somewhere and stick it into their, creation.
Right.
And that goes into the, pre-existence of souls that we'll get into a little
Yes,
bit later.
yes.
But, so they're cut off, they have to do something else. This is very reminiscent of many movies, other TV shows whereby there's always not enough of them and they have to reproduce themselves or something like them by
Yes.
millions
Yes.
because they know that, they have a lot of work to do. They're spread out throughout the solar systems and
Yes.
the galaxies,
Yep.
and they're going for it. So, the chart of the divine self that we had shown before showed that there was an upper figure of the I am presence, and there was a middle figure depicted either by the Christ of Jesus or of Krishna, and then you had the lower figure that
Yeah.
housed the soul, and the soul uses the 4 lower bodies as vehicles of expression.
Yes.
So all of that would be gone. You would have no soul, you would have no middle figure, you would have no top figure, the center of the white light where that figure is, and the rings of light around it are all completely not there. So all you have then is a physical body,
Exactly.
endowed with whatever they want to endow it with.
Right. And however, whatever form they want it in. And in many cases, this form is very beautiful and very enticing. And in some cases, these races were taller. They had a certain magnetism that the Luciferians and the Satans placed into them. So we have to say right now that truth is stranger than fiction. Okay, you heard that axiom, very known axiom. Truth is stranger than fiction. And keep that in mind as we continue our story of these crazed, what shall we call them, numbnuts? I
Well,
don't
they're
know.
soulless. They're mechanized.
Well, yeah.
They have a lot of issues. But the thing is that you would never know it because of the
Right.
way they're programmed.
Right, right. And so they would be called a robot creation. But I don't want to use the term robot in the way it's ordinarily understood with robots that have all kinds of wires
Right.
and that we're not talking about wires. We're not talking about something that's obvious. We're talking about just people who look like people of flesh and blood, but yet they are mechanized.
So,
So
and again, this is in the memory, like we have talked about before,
Yeah.
of many science fiction writers or people. You don't have to be a writer. You don't have to be someone
No.
who produces
No.
movies
right,
to have this memory.
right.
But we remember things, movies and TV series like
Yeah.
Star Trek, the one with Patrick Stewart, introduced Data.
Yes,
There's
that's
a
right.
mechanized man, but
Yeah.
again, he has circuitry and wiring.
Right.
And you had, I remember a long time ago, the Stepford Wives.
Yes, I
Similar
remember
thing,
that.
remember
Yeah, I remember
Brilliantly
Yeah.
done.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was.
they remade that too.
that. They did.
And then I remember Westworld.
Yes.
No, this whole idea
Yeah.
of mechanized people. Now, imagine a Westworld mechanized, but there's no circuitry. You can't take some panel off the back
No.
of their head and fix them, and they don't go crazy.
No.
They maintain a humanness, throughout embodiments, and there really is no way to tell. Or is there? And we'll get into that maybe later. So you can continue now.
Well, I just want to mention that these are mentioned in the New Testament. You might be surprised. They're called, quote, the seed or children of the evil one. Now, the evil one, again, is one of Lucifer's names. Or the children of the wicked one of the names of Satan. Now, you can look that up in the New Testament. But I just want to read something from Elizabeth Clare Prophet, where she talks about this race that was, again, manufactured by them millions and millions of years ago during periods of unrecorded history. So this is what Mrs. Prophet says. There are millions of robots on Earth today, godless, soulless beings who have disappeared into the human race, who are not identifiable, who have been programmed with the sense of humor, with their sense of humor, their sense of religion, and politics. They come in many flavors to suit the personality of the unascended sons of God on earth. They have crossed over into the human race, having evolved for millions of years. That's from a lecture given by Elizabeth Clare Prophet on December 30th of 1982.
And again, this is another revelation that the Ascended Masters choose to reveal at these times
Yes,
to the people of this planet, and to understand what's really going on.
and they also met in council to decide should we or should we not actually reveal this to the people of Earth, and they decided to reveal it way back in 1965 when the great divine director, Saint Germain's guru, the Master Rakazi, decided to reveal this.
Right, and you can tell from that reading how advanced their technology, if you want to call it that,
Yes,
it is so advanced that we're nowhere near.
no,
What we have now is somewhat advanced, or we think it is.
yes,
And we have the memories of things that have gone on in the past and
Yes.
coming into fruition again.
yes,
But this advancement, to be able to make, chemical beings and give them life with no actual soul, is an astounding and somewhat shocking revelation.
but it's been going on for all this time, and just because our viewers may have heard it right now, it doesn't change anything, because we know that the power of the I Am Presence, the power of the Great White Brotherhood, is incomprehensible and is far greater than anything that we could imagine as we discuss these manifestations of the energy veil or evil.
And it also starts to turn us in the direction of understanding why we have such a warring planet. You can go back thousands
Yes.
and thousands of years, and there is war after war. Now, I don't mean to say that every war and every person who fights in a war has to do with these kinds of
Right.
mechanized creations, but just start to think for a while, what if some of these, leaders or some of these problems that we have between nations, land grabs and, the
Yes.
atrocities that have taken place as far back as you want to remember.
Yes.
We live on a warring planet.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it there for now and we'll continue with the story and we'll get back to that.
And of course, when you think of this robot creation, we know that there are horrific crimes that are committed, for instance, against children. We know about this. And a lot of people will say, well, how could people do these things? Well, the answer is they are not people.
That's
It's interesting, isn't it?
They're not people in that sense where there is actually no remorse. There is
Right.
no sense of what did I just do? I mean, we've seen this play out.
Right, we've seen this play out, and of course there's no conscience,
Right.
because conscience comes from the Christ self, the Krishna self, the higher self,
Right.
working in the threefold flame, which they have not,
And the soul itself
and the soul
would
itself.
have a conscience of
Yes, it
right
would.
from wrong. But
Yes,
if
it
you
would.
are programmed with none of that, then there is no barometer for you. You have no idea that this is a wrong thing to do.
Yeah,
And why not program several thousand or more of these creatures to, roam the country and cause havoc in
Yes.
various areas?
yes,
Because we know, and we've always said, how is humanity so inhuman to itself?
yeah,
And this provides a possible solution to that
Yes.
very difficult question as why would man do that to themselves?
yes. It's an amazing solution, and it's really gnosis, divine knowledge, to understand the planet, its history, and what really is happening on Earth. So we were talking before about the spacecraft and how many planets rose in tremendous technology, but not in spirituality. And then we're talking about the spacecraft were manned to a greater or lesser extent by some of these created races.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah,
We were
right.
talking about that.
Right.
And so we want to realize in this situation that Luciferians and the Satans also engaged in extensive genetic engineering upon the races they found on the various planets. Now, I'm talking about now the sons and daughters of God, the souls of light, those that were originally created by God Elohim on these various planets. The purpose of the genetic engineering of these good races now, who became vulnerable, was for the purpose of limiting their connection to the I Am Presence. If they could put wedges and all kinds of genetics engineering to limit the accessibility of the divine self, so that the people would not know they had an I Am Presence.
Right. So there's like a spiritual interface that people with light would have, and if you can interfere with that interface, where that connection is not making the connection anymore, because you have the side of light, the angels and the cosmic hierarchy, also trying to help the races that are truly souls of light that are trying to evolve on a given planet. And so both sides are vying for
Yes.
the soul of the individual.
Yes.
One side is trying to
Yes.
depreciate that soul, cut off its connection. The other side is trying to raise it up.
Right.
And you have a tremendous dilemma when you're in a situation like that.
Now, I want you to know that some planets never were affected by the fallen ones because they were high in evolution. They knew about evil, but they never succumbed to it. So you had whole planets, actually more planets,
Right.
that were not attacked than that were attacked. because sometimes you get the idea that the entire galaxy was taken over and so forth, which is not the case. We don't know the percentages, but I just wanted to throw that out
Right,
about
right.
the genetic engineering. They were also known on various planets to create viruses that were manufactured to change the genetic code of many of the souls of light. This happened on the now lost continents of Mu or Lemuria and Atlantis. Now, some of you know about these continents. We're not going to go into the history, but these were continents that once covered most of the earth and that they were destroyed or sunk in some kind of cataclysm. So that was one of the modus operandi
Right.
of the Luciferians, the Satans, and the serpents, and so forth. All these numbnuts that you want to call.
And that's another very serious infraction.
It is.
When you're tampering with the DNA and the genetic code, because the Ascended Masters have taught that that is how karma is transmitted, positive karma and negative karma, because karma is just a law, it's indifferent.
Yes.
And so karma is transmitted through and from the DNA into the genetic code.
That's a
And
very
so the
important point.
tampering with the DNA and the genetic code, they never just do one thing. You notice that?
No, I noticed
They,
that.
they go after the genetic code for this reason, manipulating one's karma,
Yes.
not allowing to, who knows what that really can do.
Right.
And as you said, they have numberless numbers, and they're always able to infiltrate wherever they want to.
Yes. Now, the motive for all this was the fact that they were cast out of the heaven world. They could not attack God. They could not attack the spiritual hierarchy, which were sealed in higher planes. How are they going to get back at God? In other words, they're in a state of revenge.
Right.
How are they going to get back at God, at the gods, at the cosmic beings, get back at the archangels and Elohim?
Right. You go after the offspring.
You go after the offspring.
You see that play out on the planet today.
Yes.
If I'm sick of you and I can't get to you, I'm going to go to your kids. I'm going to go to your family.
Yes.
And many times you
Yes.
see these, terrible threats where they don't go after the person because the
Yeah.
person may very well be happy with surrendering their life, but they threaten the rest of your family.
Yes.
And that's where that
Yeah.
comes in. That's a very intense test or initiation, if you want to call it that.
Very intense.
And so, that's the thing is that they're extremely intelligent in their MO, their ability to read a race. They understand the vulnerabilities of the race that is
Yes.
evolving.
Yes.
They can also read the karmic cycles that are coming down to the group, nations, the individual, and they're very advanced and very intelligent on where can we move in, where can we throw a wedge here, what can we do. So I think we also have some more quotes coming up here that are pretty
Fascinating,
fascinating
interesting.
information. Yep.
Okay, so remember again that all of these planets, including Earth, that were invaded by the Luciferians, had to have some vulnerability. You cannot get taken over unless you're vulnerable, unless your guard is down, unless you said, well, I don't really go for the Ten Commandments or the precepts of Gautama Buddha. That's old-fashioned. I mean, that's one,
Yeah.
kind of a simple example. But the point is vulnerability, and any planet that's vulnerable, will be karmically taken advantage of by the fallen ones. So I'd like to read, actually you're reading this first thing,
I'm reading this one. Okay. This is from the book Mysteries of the Holy Grail. And the Ascended Masters give a description in this particular quote of the modus operandi of the Luciferians
Yes,
and the Satans.
yes,
And there's several paragraphs, but we're just going to start with the first one.
yeah,
All right?
yes,
So, quoting from the book The Mysteries of the Holy Grail, the Ascended Masters state, quote, "Great were the forces of the mechanical ones. Their spaceships were extensions of mother ships, and their black magicians under Satan extended their material power through clones of themselves, chemical humanoids, programmed with malintent to the destruction of the souls of the standard bearers of the Lord's Christ. Now, there's a lot right there, and I just want to
That's a lot.
explain slightly about a black magician, because sometimes these terms are like, you got to be kidding me. You know,
Right.
so if I heard this for the first time, I'm saying, really?
Really, come on.
What does a black magician do, and what are they really about? So I have a very brief explanation of that. You see, the Ascended Masters don't miss a trick.
No, they expose
They ex-
everything that can be
They have explained
exposed.
everything that can possibly be explained for the sake of us, the light bearers, those of souls of light that want to really know, who have been perplexed by what goes on
Yes.
this planet and other planets.
Yes.
And so let me just give this explanation of what then is a black magician. And this is from the book, The Path of Christ and Antichrist by the Ascended Masters. Now, so it says, what then is black magic? Black magic is the scientific practice of evil. Now remember, evil stands for E, energy, veil. The energy veil. So a scientific practice of manipulating the energy veil. It is a necessary function of evil, for without it, evil could not exist. Black magic involves the misuse of God's energy for any purpose that is inconsistent with the will of God. It is employed for, number one, gaining ungodly control over the manifestations of God, which would mean the creations that come directly from Elohim.
Yes.
And number two, securing for the finite self by fraudulent manipulation of cosmic law the things of this world and the next, such as money, fame, the power to manipulate men and nations. Now this is another,
That's
you
good.
have that and you have this, you
Yeah.
realize that there's much more to this. This is the use of the science, as we said before, of the force, either for good or not.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
I know that in that book they mentioned God, but
Yeah.
you can say for not following the will of Allah. You can say for not following the will of Brahma,
Yeah.
Vishnu, Shiva, whatever, world religion you may be a part of. It's about following the precepts of
Yes.
the will, because the soul has a natural tendency to want to follow the will of the God source that it emanated from in the
Yes.
first place.
Yes. Yes.
So,
It's natural almost.
yes,
If left alone, the soul automatically rises and ascends.
right.
You
it's
know,
a-
like helium, rises up for union with its divine self, if left alone.
Right. But once interfered with
Right.
all this manipulation, now you notice in that first paragraph, it talked about chemical humanoids.
Yes.
It's interesting to note, again, we're going back to the idea that people have this memory. In the original novel, Frankenstein,
Yes.
right? The creature that he creates
Yes.
comes to life by chemical means.
Right.
Even though the movie of Frankenstein shows it through electrical means. He uses various,
Yeah.
it looks like lightning almost.
storm and light.
Yeah, it's more impressive when you see that on a film. But the idea that really he used chemical means,
Yes.
and this is again a memory coming up when people are writing these stories, and it's also in the race memory of us here who have been dealing with this for a very, very long time.
Very long. Yeah, and interestingly, the author of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, and this book came out in, I believe, 1818. She had a bad dream. She had a dream about this mechanization. So you see, it was coming to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Like it does with many authors of science fiction and even ordinary people. Do you want to say anything about the Lord's Christ, or
Yeah, we should explain that a little bit.
go ahead,
I
explain?
mean, the idea, it said here that it was for the destruction of the standard bearers of the Lord's Christ.
Yes,
All that really means is the original creation that Elohim would make is the perfect man. The man that is not man or woman. And we're just using man, as a term to mean all of mankind. And it would represent that middle figure of the chart that we have shown before. And that is the ideal man, because the soul is bonded to that middle figure. It is part of that middle figure. And it has immediate access to the God source above it. So when God creates, we're talking about that standard. The standard needs not to go below that in vibration. So anytime we talk about up or down, we're talking about the frequency of vibration
yes,
of the actual atomic structure of the physical form and its four lower bodies. So if the four lower bodies densify, we're talking about the mental body, the emotional body, they densify the atomic structure, the movement literally of the electrons going around the atom slows down. Their spin slows and the movement around them slows down. And that's where we get the term of going down, and then up would be the opposite of that, the acceleration of the atomic structure. And it would affect, of course, all the cells and atoms in the physical form.
yes.
So that's my basic explanation
That's
of that.
good.
Do you have anything else to add on? You
Not,
usually have
not,
something.
not after all that.
All right. Well, see,
What
I
could
finally
I
got
poss-
away with.
What could I possibly say to?
Well, I don't know. That's what I was trying to do. Not trying to get it all in there. Maybe we should go one more paragraph. I think we can go another paragraph. I think we have
Okay,
time.
yeah, let's do
This
that.
is from the same quote now.
Here's the same quote from the Mysteries of the Holy Grail. Star Wars is no mere science fiction, but the surfacing of subconscious memories of ages past, when the evolutions of light and darkness, as the wheat and the tares of Christ's parable, were strewn across the solar systems of this galaxy, and the battle of Lucifer's fallen ones waged against the teams of conquerors of Archangel Michael's bands, were indeed a war of the worlds in the Valley of the Gods.
Oh boy. So when you went to the movie theater, you thought, I'm going to sit back and relax. Have some popcorn.
Have popcorn.
I got stress. I got my job. But now
You know
saying
what?
that Star Wars is no mere science fiction.
We should have had popcorn right here while we're reading this.
Well, maybe we can get
Don't
the
you
crew
think
over
so?
there to get us some
We'll
popcorn.
we'll try to find out if there's any somewhere in the studio.
Now, I don't think that, even though it says Star Wars is no mere fiction, he's not talking about every little detail
No,
of the movie.
no,
right?
He's not talking
We're
about all
talking
the
about
characters.
what do you think they're talking about?
Well, like the archetypal story of what Star Wars presents. It presents those who have misused the Force,
Yes.
the Sith Lords, and those who are use the what's that
The
called?
lightsaber.
That's what I'm trying to.
But you gotta know your
Okay,
stuff.
I know. I'm trying to. What do you expect? The lightsaber is blue. Okay, that's interesting because those are the forces of Archangel Michael. He's a blue flame angel on the first ray of divine will, which is blue. And so the red is the misqualification, misuse, let's say, as we described, of that same energy, that
Right.
same force, and so it comes out red. So we're talking about Star Wars now as not all of the characters, but the archetypal pattern of people taking the dark side or the left-handed path, and you'll be happy to know that we don't want to make it look like it's hopeless.
No.
Do we?
No. It's coming up to where we have mentioned several times about the cosmic hierarchy. They're not just going to stand around and watch this all happen, but we're going to get there. But I just wanted to say about the Star Wars thing also is that the use of spacecraft was certainly used. I don't think that was just fictional, because you were saying before that the forces of light could certainly use spacecraft if they wanted.
Yes,
they
they-
don't have to, but they can.
Yes,
You had said before, but who is it manned by was the point.
that's the point.
See, so if they're moving in the physical dimension with spacecraft, why not match them with the same kind of craft
Yes.
or better to,
Yes,
in these
yes,
wars?
yes.
So perhaps we will stop here, and then we will continue with more from the mysteries of the Holy Grail, because there is more exciting new revelation on what really went on planet Earth and in this solar system. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.